Hello guys and welcome back. It's a new year and we have new content for you. You might be asking yourself, what am I doing with all these bins in the back here? These basically, this is our custom gear room where when you order a custom rig or a full rig package or a canopy or a container, we start your orders here. Once we start getting all of the components, we put them in these plastic bins, and then as everything is received and it's all ready, it goes up to the ring loft, gets assembled, and gets shipped to you. So all of these bins are filled with either canopies or containers or full rig packages, and you're wondering how to get to ordering your stuff online to this. So this is going to be a three-part series on how to order your gear, the things you have to consider, and some tips on buying new gear versus used gear. Depends on what way you want to go. So let's get started with this three-part series on how to buy your gear. All right, so in many past opportunities, we've talked about buying gear, but we've never gone into really into detail on what steps to go through, what to look out for, and things to know before you even buy even used gear or new gear. All right, so you're fresh out of AFF, you have a few jumps under your belt, and you're looking into getting your first rig. First question I want to ask you, do you want to buy used or you want to buy new? This sport is not cheap, we all know that. So the first step into getting your gear is a big investment, even if you're getting it used, but you're still getting a rig that is just like a starter rig that you probably still figuring out what sizes and you're kind of downsizing. I recommend, if you can, downsize while renting gear. That way you can get to a comfortable canopy size that you know you're going to be sticking with for a while, and then get your gear based on that. Okay, so let's say you're buying a used rig or used canopies. If it's a full rig, all right, so let's say you're buying a used gear or a used container or used canopies. First thing you have to ask whomever's selling it is if that person is willing to have it inspected by a rigger or your local rigger. If they're not, just walk away from that deal. For container systems, always ask a few questions. How many jumps does the container have? Is it the first owner of the container? Has it been packed indoors or outdoors in grass or dirt or, really arid areas like deserts or whatnot? Has it landed on the water? What type of hardware does the harness and container have? And most important, because you're going to be putting this on your body, what are the original harness measurements? Why? Because I know that this may struggle, and for people that are either let's say tiny girls or people that are bigger with a bigger build, the struggle is to get a harness container system that will fit their body. So ask about the original measurements for the harness. That way you have an idea if that harness will fit you. A good fit on your harness will basically introduce into good openings. You're going to be under a comfortable harness. So that is really important. You need to have a harness that fits you, even if it's used gear. With a loose harness, you're going to get bruised. You might have weird openings, even malfunctions can occur. So just make sure that that harness might fit you. An inch and a half is okay if it's off up or down, but more than that, then you might want to look for something that will fit you better. With new container systems, that's totally different, because once you get measured for a harness, it will be made to fit your body. For used canopies, ask the same questions. Has it been landed on the water? How many jumps roughly it might have? Has it been repaired? Does it have any stains? What type of suspension line does it have, and what's the life of the current suspension lines it has on? When was the last reline? So all these things, again, have been inspected by your rigger. We offer escrow services. If you are buying gear for somebody and you want somebody, a third party, to look at it, inspect it, and send you an inspection report, we can do that. And I'll leave a link in the description where you can find all that information. But yeah, have your rigger inspect the gear that you might be buying. If you don't buy it, you're not convinced, not a problem. send that back to whomever's selling it and keep looking. This sport is not cheap, and getting your first gear, even if it's used, is a big investment. So there's a lot of things you have to keep in mind. If it's a reserve that you're buying, the same. How many times it's been deployed? Has it been logged? All of those things. Reserve canopies are the ones that have, let's say, the least amount of wear and tear, because if they're not been deployed, they're basically brand new. But every time they're packed, they have a certain life. So always ask that, and always check the data card on that gear that you're buying. When getting used gear, I always recommend, when anybody's getting their first gear, I recommend, if they can, downsize while renting gear. That way you get to a comfortable canopy size that you know you're going to be sticking for a while, and get your gear based on that, even if it's used or if it's or brand new. So if you're buying new gear, it's a totally different story, because in the case of the harness and container system, it's going to be made to your measurements, to your specifications. I know that sometimes when you open up an order form, it's going to be super overwhelming, because there's a lot of information and a lot of components and parts that you probably are not familiar with. So learning about these options is also part of the whole learning process in skydiving. So what container should I get? All harness and container systems are made under the same industry standards. So they're pretty much all the same, in the sense that they're all life-saving devices. Each one has their own proprietary design or features that one manufacturer might have from the other, but they're all made under industry standards. To be able to be sold in the United States, they have to be certified as a life-saving device. So that said, what harness and container systems should you get? Well, it's personal preference. You will see in different drop zones all around the country, you'll see some drop zones that are more, they lean more into a certain brand than others. It depends on where they are and what's usually jumped there. I recommend getting with your instructor, getting with your SMTA, and asking for information. Also get with your packer. They are packing rigs all day, and they get different types of harness and container systems that they're constantly packing. Also canopies. So that's a good source of information. Any harness and container system is a good choice. There's no good or bad harness and container. Obviously, you also want to look into how long you want to wait, because some manufacturers might have higher production times than others. So that's another question you want to ask yourself. Do you want to wait a year for your brand new container system, or you want it in 3-4 weeks estimated? All times for production on skydiving gear are estimated. It's not like a religious time frame, because this might vary based on each manufacturer's production volumes and times. So take that in consideration as well. For canopies, what canopy should I get? Well, that's something I've always mentioned on our videos, is if you're getting a new canopy, or if you are downsizing, always consult with your instructor, your SMTA, and based off your current canopy skills, what he would recommend based on the type of canopy and the size of canopy. Remember that there are different types of canopies based on their platform, their trim. So that's a lot of things you have to consider. Okay, line types. What line types are better? What's the pros and cons? All of that information, and we can help you with that once you get to that start that process on ordering a canopy. What would be the best to go with your gear? All right, so even if you're buying new gear, you have to ask yourself one thing: what is your budget? This sport is not cheap. We all know that, but the pricing on your, let's say, full rig or your container will vary based on whatever options you select on it. Free fly options or wingsuit specific options, or anything that is not a standard option, will be an extra cost. So you have to take that in consideration. So, how much are you willing to pay for your full rig? You can get a bare bones new rig or a new container system with standard options and then add like a free fly main deployment handle, free fly or reserve handle, but they all most come with standard options like RSL, some come with padding, stainless steel hardware and articulation. Some manufacturers offer that. Remember that the price will vary also with the type of canopies, and you can see this on our website where we have the full rig packages. As you select options and as you select the types of canopies, main, reserve, and ADs, the price will vary. Some will be less and will subtract from that top price that you see that on the top of the page, and base of whatever canopies you're selecting, whatever AED you're selecting. But what will determine the final price of your harness and containers would be the options. And those basically, once you fill out your order form and all that, we'll place your order based off of that. And options, yes, there's a ton of options. Once you get that order form and you start filling it out, you get lost and confused because there's a whole bunch of terms and components and parts that you don't know what they mean. So we'll dive more into each component in the next video, because I want to go into detail to what each of every component on a container system is, what it's for, and what would be recommended that you select. One of the other questions that I get a lot is, what harness and container size should I get? Well, that will be depending on what type and what size canopies you're buying and what you're putting in there. Because it might be a full fitting canopy on your main tray or in your reserve as well. And most manufacturers will make the main and reserve tray to fit but the canopies that you're going to be working with. That's why they have those fields on their order form, so that they can make based off of your body measurements and the type and size canopies, they can make that container either longer on your back, depending on your torso measurement and all that. But we'll dive into that a little bit deeper in the next video.
Are you bored yet? This is important, so you might want to pay attention.
Now, some recommendations. I know once you're fresh out of AFF, you already have a helmet, you already have your goggles, or if you have a full face helmet, you don't need goggles, you got an altimeter, you got an audible, and you got a jumpsuit. What's next? You have to get your full rig. But don't rush into getting whatever you find on the used gears portals and whatnot, because it is a big deal. You want it to work perfectly, you want it to be comfortable, and you still want to get, a good investment, even if it's used. Because if you're later down the road looking into getting a new container system or a new canopy, you still want to get a good deal out of your used gear, especially if it's gear that's been well taken care of, or if it's a certain manufacturer that will hold a bit more value in time in the market. So keep those things into consideration. And if you have any questions about getting anything, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'll be more than happy to guide you into what will be the proper thing to get. Again, if you're buying used gear and that person, whomever's selling it, is not agreeing to an inspection by rigger, walk away from that deal. All right, so that's all the time we have for today. On our next video, we are going to dive into the options for your container system. We have a few older videos where we show all options, but we haven't gone into detail on, let's say, versus order form versus the real thing. What does every component, what they're for, what type, length, or color should I get? So we'll dive into all of that in our next edition.
If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to get our latest notifications. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.